Welcome to the future. This is Ina Braxton from the Digital Future Lab, and you're listening to our weekly DFL podcast, where we cover the state of the gaming industry, technology, and diversity. Here are your hosts, Samantha Riley and Jesus Govella.
Hello and welcome to the DFL podcast. I'm Jesus.
And I'm Samantha.
And today we'll be talking about the DFL's top 5 favorite games in 4 categories.
So we'll be going over not just games, but we'll be talking about video games, board games, sports, and then arcade games. So let's get started. It should be interesting. We took a survey yesterday of all the DFL people that were here about what their favorite games were to get their input, and then we gathered all the data, and that's what we'll be sharing today and our opinions on it.
Yep. This is roughly 20 people's top 5 favorite games from each of the categories. And we'll start with video games. So, the top 5 we have for those are The Legend of Zelda, the series, Kingdom Hearts, also the series, Super Mario Sunshine, Portal 1 and 2, and Overwatch.
And as someone who is not a video game player, I could definitely say the first 3 at least, The Legend of Zelda, Kingdom Hearts, and Super Mario, I've definitely heard about or seen, even if I haven't played myself, so it makes sense why those would be our favorites. But do you want to speak on your experience? You played those games?
All right. I've played every single one of those, but my favorites would be probably The Legend of Zelda series and Kingdom Hearts out of those 5.
Why?
Yeah. Mainly because I tend to like single player games a little bit more than the multiplayer ones. And both of those are kind of similarly action adventure. And I like that genre a lot.
And that seems like it's a common theme at the lab that most people enjoy the single player games.
Right, yeah. There's not too many multiplayer games that were given.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Overwatch was the only big one.
Do you want to speak about that one? Just your insight?
Overwatch was, I believe, released like 2 years ago. It was pretty big back then, but now it's kind of died down a bit. Now the only people who play it are the actual like diehard fans. But it's still pretty good. It's still getting updates. The company behind it, Blizzard, they're pretty good about updates and patches and stuff like that. They're also the ones behind World of Warcraft and a couple other big games.
Okay, so that is the top 5 for video games. So we're going to move on to our next category, which is board games. And I think the number 1 game that stood out is Uno, the card game, which, I mean, I feel like everyone's played Uno, like, no matter what age you are, if you're a little kid or if you're older. Like, Uno is just such a universal. I feel like it's also, like, a good family game. So, I mean, I definitely agree with that. Like, I understand why that was the most popular one, because it's so fun, and you could do it 2-player, or you could do it 10 players. Yeah, so.
Yeah, it's also pretty simple. You just need the cards, and that's it.
Right. I actually remember I used to babysit for this family, and it was a group of 5-year-olds. Like, 5-year-olds. And trying to explain a board game to 5-year-olds is really complicated, but they all knew how to play Uno. So that was a game we always played when I would babysit them. That was, like, their favorite thing to do before bed. We'd have a little round of Uno. So that's definitely, like, a family favorite.
Yeah, and it's also fun at any age.
Yeah. For sure. I could see myself being, like, 60 and still wanting to play a game of Uno.
Yeah. And it's also it's kind of similar to Monopoly in the way that you're trying to you're competing against the other players.
Right. It's a simple concept, and I feel like the objective to win and beat everybody, I feel like that's already ingrained in, like, even as a young child, you have to be the best, you have to win. So it's easy to explain to young children, I feel like.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, Monopoly was not one of the ones that was given at all.
I'm surprised too, and I feel like it's because Monopoly takes so long.
Yeah.
Like I went through a little phase, me and my sister, where we spent like 3 days playing, and then we're like, do you just want to give up? Like, do you want to start a new round? Because it just got to the point where it wasn't fun anymore. So I kind of get why people don't like that, because there's kind of no end to it. Yeah,
it can be pretty hard to end a game of Monopoly, like the legit way. Like everyone getting bankrupt except for one player.
Yeah. I think especially if you're playing with multiple people, I mean, it takes a while sometimes. So I kind of get it. That's a fun game to play, though, but I think you should put, like, a time limit on it. Like, we'll play for 1 hour, and if we don't have a winner, then we'll just call it quits.
Yeah, house rules usually end up going into play if it goes on too long.
Yeah. Or, like, the oldest person in the group automatically wins.
Yeah.
See, that never worked for me, because I'm the middle child, so I never got to win. So a few of the other games... So there's Dungeon and Dragons was another top one. Betrayal at the House on the Hill, Secret Hitler, and then Game of Life.
Dungeons and Dragons, or D&D, is a very popular one. Probably the most popular out of all of these, just in general, just because it's been around for so long, and it's pretty complex. It takes a lot of setup, but it's a lot of fun with friends, especially since one of them is the dungeon master. They get to make up pretty much the whole campaign that the others go on, and that's pretty fun.
I've actually never played that game, but it sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
It sounds a lot more complex. Like, there's a lot more thinking involved, which I think I would like if it was with the right age group. Obviously, probably like at the lab, that's probably something we'd play, not with like our family with the big age variety.
Right. Yeah, and it also spans multiple play sessions usually, because you probably can't get through the whole thing depending on who the dungeon master is in one sitting. So it's something you can come back to.
Okay. I'll have to add that to my list of games to play.
Yeah. And then Betrayal, it's one of my personal favorites. It's basically you and a few other players are running through this mansion that is changing every game because it's procedurally generated as you go. It's not the same mansion every time. And then at some point during the game, one of the players will betray the others and be on the side of the monsters who are trying to kill the other players. But the thing is, no one knows who's going to betray the group because it's at random. And that can be pretty fun.
I noticed a lot of the really popular games that people voted for were a game where it's like one person against everyone else. Like there's one clear enemy. So I guess that's fun because you can all kind of gang up on that one person for a game.
Right. Especially if you don't know who it's going to be until it happens. And then Secret Hitler is one of those hidden identity games where one person is, I guess, Hitler in this case. And except in Secret Hitler, they're on a team and they have other players working with them to try and enact policies, I think. Yeah. And if they get enough policies, then they win. But the other team are trying to enact counteracting policies. And if they get enough, then they win.
And then our last one was Game of Life, which I haven't played in so long, so I don't really remember how it goes. But I know that's a really popular one that I always see. That's probably similar to Uno, where it's a very like family-oriented game.
Yeah, I also haven't played it in a while, but I do remember it being pretty fun, pretty family-friendly.
So I don't think we can really speak on that, but another one that's not on here is Candyland.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Candyland's the best. I guess that's also something that we're probably not playing anymore, but I feel like the concept was so simple. I mean, you can explain it to anyone. Like, even as a little kid, that was probably the first game I ever learned. So I guess for me, that's like kind of nostalgic. Like, oh, like that used to be what I played as a kid. And that's why it's so special, but it's not on here, but that's okay.
Yeah. And a interesting thing about the game of life, it's actually one of the oldest board games out there. So a lot of people have played it. I'm guessing most people have played it at least once in their life, no matter their age.
Yeah, I see. It was created in 1860, so it's been, what is that, 150 years?
Yeah.
160 years? Yeah. So that's pretty amazing that it's still around today and people are still buying it in the stores, so that's really cool. I know they've come out with like a lot of new editions of the game too.
Yep.
So that's really cool. It's like the evolution of the board game.
Yeah, a lot of these board games have come out with different editions. I think every single one that we have here has some variation.
But it still has like the standard overall theme of the game.
Yeah. Like for Uno, I think it's Dos is the newest one, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah,
I don't know if I want to play that.
Yeah, I don't think it's doing too well, but there's always the first one.
See, that's what's hard about changing, because that's one thing, changing from like Uno to Dos. It's like you're changing like the name on there.
Yeah. And
our brains say no, it's Uno. So yeah, I don't know. Especially for playing it for so many years, I don't know if I could just make that switch.
Yeah, especially I don't know what the new rules would be or are, but I don't think it'd be easy to switch over from Uno to Dos just like that.
Yeah. We're going to get into the next section, which is the top 5 sports at the Digital Future Lab, which is an interesting one because, I mean, sometimes like on our DFL fun days, which we'll have, sometimes we do like potlucks and stuff. We just do fun things for the interns here. We always play board games or some sort of video game. Like that's always a theme that we love to do, but we don't really ever do sports. Like that's not really common here. So it's interesting to see what people do outside of the lab because all these sports they're probably doing on their own time, not really with people in the lab. So it's interesting to see. Our top 3 that had the most votes were tennis, soccer, and basketball.
Yep. I was one of those tennis votes. So yeah, I can speak a bit about that. The tennis I've played for, I guess, ever since elementary. I always liked, just playing, even just on the playground against the wall, just lobbing it back and forth, practicing.
Were you ever on a team?
No, but I think I would have liked to be, now looking back on it. Yeah. That's
actually, I was a little bit into tennis in high school. I actually tried out my senior year for the tennis team, but I didn't make it because, I mean, I can make all the excuses I want, but I was a senior joining and competing against freshmen who are at the same level as me, and they're going to take freshmen over a senior who's going to graduate. So I didn't make it, but it was a fun experience. You know, I still have the rack at home and stuff. I bought all the equipment for it, so.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, actually, I did my sister is big on soccer, so I've done a little bit of that, just helping her, but I don't know, it's not really for me.
Yeah, not really for me too. I was on a team in a summer team when I was really little, and I did have fun, but it's not something I would have done again.
Yeah, I agree. I went through a little phase where I thought I wanted to be on the soccer team, and then I never tried out. But I do enjoy watching soccer, which I understand why it is probably one of the top ones in the lab because, I mean, it's fun to watch. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's really popular around the world too.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest sport. I mean, in the U.S. it's definitely football, which football is not on here on our top 5, but I feel like in the U.S. football is definitely pretty big.
Yeah, that is interesting. No one here said football.
Yeah. But I guess it just, people there's different personalities here, and I'm sure a lot of people that go to Bothell are into football, but just not necessarily the people in the lab.
Right.
And then our other 2 top 5 are baseball and running, which I thought was interesting that people voted for running. So I guess like running on your own or just doing like track in school or cross country. I actually did that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was in track in high school. So I actually enjoyed it. Yeah. It was fun because they really push you. And I mean, I've never been that. I was probably like at my peak with how I was doing with my stamina. Whereas now, if I run a mile, it's not as good as it was back then. You know how it goes. So
Yeah. I do like, just running, jogging on my own.
Yeah.
Just walking around. I've never been on a track team or anything, but it was always interesting running the mile in high school and seeing the track team sometimes, just doing what they do.
It's intense.
Yeah.
They push you. Another thing is, like, there's not really any sports on here that, like, all the sports on here involved a lot of, like, hand-eye coordination instead of, like, body coordination. That's just something I noticed. Maybe I'm biased, but there's no, like, gymnastics or cheer or just, like, other sports where you're not really using a ball, but you're using, like, your own body. So that was interesting. Just something I realized.
Yeah, I think I like tennis just because it's not too taxing in terms of moving your body. It's more focused on the racket.
Right. It's all about technique.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of, I mean, I really respect people who, do like basketball and soccer and stuff. It just, it takes so much concentration and not just focus within your own body, but like what everyone else on the team is doing. And that's something that I always struggled with. So I think that's really cool that there's people in the lab who really enjoy doing that, which is awesome. There's a lot of diversity. It's really interesting because on our campus, if you go to UW Seattle, there's a lot of opportunity to join a sports team. And on our campus, we don't really have that, but we have recreational teams. So we're not really competing against other schools. We just do it for fun. People create their own teams on the side, which is really cool. I know volleyball is big here. And there's also flag football.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, so I don't know how big we are on. I don't really see any tennis teams. So maybe that's something we should get a group to do, because I know that the ARC sells, you can like rent tennis rackets.
Do we have a tennis court here?
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't seen it.
It's actually, I see people playing tennis sometimes. It's right by where the volleyball courts are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we definitely have the resources. We don't necessarily have like a team that you can be on, but we have just recreational groups that get together and play sports. The next category is our favorite arcade games. So the top 5 that we got were Dance Dance Revolution, Pinball, Air Hockey, Skee Ball, and Shooting Gallery.
Yep. Dance Dance Revolution, or DDR. It's one of the most popular arcade games, just in general, I think. So it's no surprise it's up there.
Yeah, I was not surprised at all. We played that at our last DFL Fun Day, and I feel like that's always like the most crowded arcade game when you go. Like there's always someone on there, and I feel like it's just an OG. Like it's always been around.
Yes. It's also a good workout. So,
that is true.
Yeah. I think a lot of people appreciate that at an arcade when they're usually not doing that.
Yeah, especially because you're usually just standing for I don't even know how long, and changes things up.
Yep.
So the next one's pinball.
Yeah, I didn't realize this myself until recently, but pinball, like the retro arcade machine pinball machines, have been pretty popular. There's actually a pinball museum close by here, which I didn't know until recently, but
wow,
I didn't know there was such a big following for pinball.
That doesn't surprise me because I think like a lot of games are so digitalized now that it's probably kind of refreshing to see like a pinball machine. I feel like that's probably what the arcade started with, so
yeah,
that's really cool. I have to check out the pinball museum.
Yeah.
Then we also have air hockey, which I feel like that's another super fun one. I also like that game's like pretty fast, and I like the competitive aspect of it. Like it's really intense. Like I feel like your adrenaline's like pumping. Like you're just like on edge, like ready to go. So I think that makes it really exciting.
Yeah, it basically goes as fast as you hit the puck.
Right. Yeah, but I like that it's like you go into the game and you're just, while you're in the game, you're just in it. And like, I feel like it goes by really fast and all of a sudden it's over and you're like, whoa. Like, it's like your heart rate goes up and then it goes back down. So
yeah.
it's kind of that nice adrenaline rush.
Yeah. There's also some slight variations at some arcades. Like I know at Round 1 down in South Center, they have multiple air hockey tables. They have the classic one-on-one, one puck. But they also have one where you have where there are multiple pucks that just fly around, but they're smaller.
Oh, that's intense.
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow.
But you have two of the things that you grab. I don't know what they're called, but one in each hand, so you can defend your goal a little bit better.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm actually going there in a few weeks for a birthday party, so I need to try that. That's cool.
Yeah. Round 1 is unique in that way. They have a lot of unique machines, or machines from, not from here, like from Japan.
Ooh. That's cool. It's cool to see like different like evolutions of already existing games and how they just kind of change it, make things a little crazy. Our last one, or our last two, is a skee ball and then the shooting gallery.
Right, yeah. Skee ball is another classic one. It's pretty much in every arcade these days, and even back then. Just like pinball. It's very... it's one of the more physical ones, kind of like the basketball, the mini basketball shooting hoops.
Oh, yeah.
Ones.
Wait, is that what it is?
No, it's like that bowling where you're going through the...
Oh, okay. I didn't recognize the name. I didn't know what that was. Yeah, that's such a classic one. That one's so fun. Okay, I always remember I was like never that good at it, and it would like make me frustrated.
Yeah, it can be pretty hard depending on the machine.
Yeah, some people are so good though, where they get like that center hole, whatever that is. You get like 1,000 points every time, and I'm next to them. I have 20 points. So,
yeah, it's always nice seeing different boards too. It's not always just like a target. The highest values in the middle. Sometimes it's like in the top right or top left.
That's true. I feel like people get really creative with the design of that. Like I've seen like animals and stuff, or where you get like the, I don't know, like what is it? The gopher in the hole or something.
Oh, yeah.
Our last one is shooting gallery, which I don't think I've ever done in an arcade, but that makes sense. I know shooting's pretty big. Like people really enjoy that. They have a lot of fun with it. So.
Yeah, there's shooting gallery is kind of a general term. There's a lot of different types. Like at older arcades, you might have a more traditional just shooting actual physical targets, like in an actual gallery that just fall over when they detect you've been hit. But some more modern arcades, like at Round 1, they'll have a bunch of digital shooting galleries where you're shooting at a screen.
Yeah, I've definitely seen those.
Yeah, and it's like it's pretty much a video game, but you're actually holding some toy gun, actually aiming at the screen, and some even have you actually reload the gun you have.
Oh yeah, it's like an actual gun. Actually, I think that's really cool for people who are actually interested in shooting like at a real range, not with a toy gun.
Yeah,
this is kind of like your little intro to it. I don't know if you're like scared of the real thing or something. One that I'm kind of surprised, it just hit me, that I think was really fun is the car racing games.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, similar to, like, shooting, I feel like when you're in this world, it's like you're doing things that you're not able to really do in real life. So, I remember, like, as a kid, I would always get on the driving ones and race because I couldn't drive. So, that was, like, my escape to be able to drive. And, you know, you get a race and swerve through cars. Like, that was always a fun one.
Yeah, that's also very common at arcades to have a lot of racing games. And there's even... and there's two variations on the vehicle you're driving. Sometimes it's not just a car. Sometimes it's a boat or a jet ski.
Right.
Or even snowboarding.
Oh yeah.
Or a motorcycle. Yeah.
That's true. I've definitely seen those. I know the one I think about is at the movie theater near us, actually. They always have like a little arcade, and they always have the car races there.
Yeah, and some can even link up to each other to have races with your friends too.
Oh, like next to each other?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that. I always remembered, like, if I didn't have money, like, as a kid, and, like, my parents didn't want to pay for an arcade game at the movie theater, I would just, like, sit, and, like, they'd be in line getting popcorn. I would, like, sit on the motorcycle or whatever vehicle it was, and it shows on the screen someone driving, but you're not actually driving it because you didn't put money in, so it's not working. But I would sit there and, like, pretend, and that was so fun. Like, I got to do it for free, basically, but I wasn't driving anything. So that's kind of a nostalgic one for me.
Okay, yeah. I think a lot of kids do that.
Yeah. I don't do it anymore. That's weird.
And it's also pretty, it can be pretty immersive too, depending on the machine, how much feedback you're getting, like from the wheel. Like if it actually, like, rumbles, and it's actually getting harder to turn if you're going too fast or something like that.
Right. I feel like those definitely aren't accurate to how an actual steering wheel is. Like, yeah. Once you really drive, you realize how different it really is.
Right, yeah. Or the seat actually moving a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Getting a turn.
Some cars do that.
Yeah.
Well, that is our whole list. We got through it all. Our DFL top 10. We'll probably do this again with, different categories. Maybe not necessarily games, but something else. So thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, it's always nice to see what everyone's likes are, what their interests are.
Yep. Everyone is so different, so it's really cool to see, like, a lot of us have a lot in common where we like the same games and sports and arcade games, but then a lot of us are really different where we don't necessarily like the same games. So it's cool to hear everyone's perspective.
Yeah, and we'll definitely be interested to hear more from everyone on different topics.
So stay tuned.
Yep.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed our discussion. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Digital Future Lab and on Twitter at DFL_studios. Tune in next time for more on games, technology, and diversity.